That was a robust discussion on insecurity and the different dimension of crimes in Nigeria. Going forward, the discussion is going to go into hardship, food security, and palliative distribution. This administration seems to be doing a lot about concerning distribution of palliative. Almost every state, there's some sort of palliative being distributed, ranging from foodstuff to cash transfer to giving people stipends. And all of this, they say, is in a bid to cushion the effects of the fuel subsidy removal, which every Nigerian knows that has, one way or the other, increased the hardship that Nigerians were already undergoing for some years now. And then another dimension is that as of last week, there was an incident in Nasarawa State where the distribution of palliative took a different turn. There was a stampede and some people died. Students specifically, where some people died, some were rushed to the hospital. The feet of those people are still there. And there was another incident again in Bauchi. It's also a distribution of palliative. As at yesterday, the death toll of that particular incident had risen to 7. Now, we are going to be looking at this. While the federal government is talking about the need for food security, the federal government is talking about the need for food security and all of that, vis-a-vis the distribution of palliative. How can the stampede be stemmed? How can this distribution of palliative be carried out without any kind or any sort of incidents that will involve the loss of lives or somebody even getting injured? To discuss this, I have with me in the studio Godwin Peter. He is a social commentator. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, taking a look at the trend of distribution of palliative across the country, I would just like you to make your assessment of this exercise.
Okay, for a start, I want to appreciate the lawmakers, the government at all levels who have put some modalities in place to cushion the effect of the hardship that is ongoing. But the tail end, we also register some casualty, and that's to show the rate of hardship, because if people were able to have sustainable food security, I don't think they will go and hurt themselves because they want to get food. It's to actually let us know that the food and hardship is at a very severe rate. And talking about the measures to see how this palliative can be disbursed in a way that people will not have much casualty, I think the government should put modalities in place, such as maybe passing through churches leaders, mosque leaders, to be able to have a congregation of a little crowd. For example, if in a particular mosque, the imam know the number of persons that are there, and such an imam is brought in the distribution of this palliative, and he will be able to give it out to the members of his congregation in a way that it will not be much. If you go to the Christian community, if this palliative is dispersed based on church level, the pastors have a number of congregation that is controllable. If palliative is given to pastors, they will be able to give to the congregation without much crowd that will lead to stampede. If we go to our community level, we have various chiefs and head of living different level at the community. If this palliative is passing through those medium, I think it will reduce the rate of crowd that will lead to a stampede or any form of casualty.
But you do know that it appears as if these days, at the mention of palliative, everywhere there must be crowd. Everywhere there must be crowd. At the mention of palliative, even if it's just one bag of rice, people don't want to know. If you remember, in the year 2020, during the COVID-19, those measures were taken where palliative, even right here in Papi, it was brought to the primary school, and same thing happened.
Like I said, if actually we have a sufficient quantity of this palliative to be able to be distributed in substantial quantity, for example, if the whole of Pape, and then we are looking at a place of over 5 to 6 million people, if I stand to be corrected, and then we are bringing palliative to just one center, the crowd that will come to that place will be uncontrollable. But for example, Pape is being, maybe we have 10 centers where this palliative will be distributed to leaders of those 10 centers. It will reduce that crowd.
What happened to trust issues? Because Because that also is an issue. People do not trust these leaders you're talking about, these community leaders or church leaders or whatever.
That is one of the greatest problems we are having. But even in the very open space where this palliative is being brought, that is leading to this mammoth crowd that casualty comes, how transparent do you think that palliative is enough for the people? If that palliative were to be enough, there is no how modality will not be put in place to divide it into different segments and into different positions where the crowd will be reduced.
Now, there have been some school of thoughts that the distribution of palliative food as palliative, and in some cases 5,000 naira to family members, to individuals, that this is not what should be the primary focus now. That the primary focus should be in stemming the tide of insecurity, which we all know that has led to the present situation, because farmers can no longer go to their farms. What's your take on that?
I totally agree with that school of thought. You know, I see a belief on some pragmatic leaders in the days of old, and their approach to governance have yielded so much differences. One-time president of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, said that a nation that strives is not a nation that pays so much attention to economic development, but it's a nation that pays much attention to capacity building and human capital development. Now, when we are talking about capacity building and human capital development, is investing on humans. All right. When a nation pays attention on creating job employment, when a nation pay attention on making sure that people go to school and get enlightened, when a nation pay attention on giving employment and infrastructure development, the persons that have been built through those avenues that the nation has built will be able to become economists themselves, and they will be able to facilitate economy. Now, in a nation where people are no more going to farm because of insecurity, in a nation where intellectuals are flying out of the country to go and look for better opportunities, in a nation where there is no industries, there is no companies for people to work, the first thing that the government are supposed to see as a major role to cushion the effects permanently should be on how to set modalities in place such as to make sure there are industries, there are soft loan to farmers, then there are securities that will be able to make people go back to farm. Nigeria have fertile lands. Nigeria have a lot of potentials that, if those potentials are utilized, we can have food that people will not go to be begging up there. So I totally agree with the school of thought that is calling for the government to deal with the issue of insecurity, which is going to be a permanent way of making food supply to be substantial.
Do you think giving out food to people is sustainable?
It's never sustainable. It's never sustainable. You asked me about trust issues, which I told you it's one of the very serious issues we are dealing with. Now, in a nation of 200 million, I stand to be corrected.
Over 2 million. That 200 million was like how many years ago?
How many years back?
So now, while we're still waiting for the census.
So let's just believe on that data of over 200 million. And you are looking at maybe transferring a stipend of 5,000 to people. At what is going to be the interval of country? Is it going to be on a daily basis? Because when we are dealing with issues that is human cost, is not natural. If, for example, victim of flood or victim of one hazard or the other, that you just go to give them relief material, you are just trying to give them a temporary situation to be able to wait pending when a solution will come. So that is what palliative can work. It's a humanitarian service that is just given to people who are victims of a circumstance that is transient, that is maybe that have a duration. But if Nigerian insecurity and hardship is not dealt with pragmatically and diplomatically, it's going to be a permanent situation. So the government thinking of distributing food, which of course is not going to be in a substantial rate, and we are not sure that this food will continue to be distributed on a daily basis or monthly basis. So I think the best thing for government to do is to address the issues that lead to the hardship that we are in, so that the people should become sustainable by themselves without depending on government provision of daily food.
As a social commentator, how will you address Nigerians? There seems to be this greed and selfishness in Nigeria, whereby people just take advantage of a situation and see it as an opportunity to enrich themselves. For instance, take for example the high cost of foodstuff, goods and services, and as at last week, the dollar rate, which has been blamed for the high cost of goods and services, has dropped, has reduced last week, and yet people keep buying things at exorbitant prices. Now, beyond the government, because this time around it is not about government, the human nature in Nigeria, how will you talk to Nigerians concerning that?
I want to say that it's very unfortunate that Nigerians are not ready to complement the effort of the government. And just like W.F. Kennedy once said, do not actually depend on what the government can do for you, but depend on what you can do for the government. We are looking at a nation that is the growth rate is at a geometric rate, while the food supply is at arithmetic rate. So if you are waiting for the government to do everything, the government actually will keep failing us. So in a situation where you as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a businesswoman, looking for a way to take advantage of the little hike, maybe in price of fuel or hike, or maybe 100 naira.
Don't say little hike. That price of fuel is not little.
It's not little, but I'm saying
it's like a 360.
It
is not little.
It's not little anymore.
Let Nigerians not hear you say it's little.
Okay, I'm generally I'm talking about people that are looking for opportunities to take advantage. For example, if what you do buy 7,000 a bag is sold for 7,500, and you know that selling it in a bag you can still make 10,000. And you are now increasing it 500 in each cup or mudu. That is to undue advantage. Now, we know that fuel is no longer bought the way it was, but a destination that 200 was covering, and you are charging somebody for 800 just because of, I know that fuel is cost. It's a way of not complementing the effort of the government, and the effect is not going to the government, because the government up there, they are able to still, sort their way out. The majority of the people who are suffering the scarcity of everything are the poor masses. So I think those of us who are in any advantage position to render help, don't see that advantage as a way of extortion. See it as a way of you playing a part of patriotism by making the people not to feel the hardship much more.
We're still discussing food security and palliative distribution. The role of government in all of this, the role of Nigerians in all of this, from the person who is giving out the palliative and the person who is receiving the palliative. Now it appears as if palliative has become something that instead of bringing joy to people, it brings sadness. Because how will you describe somebody going to get food, then the next thing the person will be taken in a body bag, or the person will be rushed to the hospital because that particular person has been injured because of a stampede that happened during the distribution of palliative. We'll be taking a commercial break, and when we return, Godwin Peter will still be here for us to continue this conversation. Government decides to take bags of food stuff to an open field. That place is a convocation ceremony for students. Actually, it is an initiative created by the Nasarawa State Governor for students, whereby a student would get a bag of food, rice, and then a 5,000 naira. But ever since the incident, there have been reactions. This particular incident has elicited reaction from a cross-section of Nigerians. People have been condemning the act, especially the turnout of events. Students that went to school, they are expected to go back home, and sadly, they will go back home as corpses because their parents will have to bury them. Gordon Peter, you're still here. Now look at that mammoth crowd. Look at that mammoth crowd. And this is an initiative that is created by the governor of a state, who is also the chief security of the state. People will be asking, looking at what past incidents, should state government still be doing this?
The state government had a good intention, actually. I probably feel that the governor felt that if this is done, it will help some of the students who are, lacking their storage while being in school. But I also think that the governor should have also put some security measures to see how the people are being controlled in the course. But then, when crowd, how many security will they even will deploy to such a place to be able to control the crowd? Just like I'm still saying, if a situation like this is to be provided in a place that you know that there is hunger and people with all anxiety are going to come to make sure that they get this thing before it's over, it should be distributed to head of a particular group that have a sizable number than bringing it into a crowd that is uncontrollable. Because once the crowd is uncontrollable, even there are securities on ground, the security will not be of a good number to be able to control the crowd. So I don't want to think that the governor knew that it's going to turn out this way. He didn't thought of it. His intention was good to see how we can create a little relief to the students, but then it has turned this way. I think these things is for learning, for lessons, so that when such measure is to be taken by anybody else, he should also consider such eventualities.
In your discussion the other time, you said Nigerians are taking advantage, some Nigerians are taking advantage of government efforts, right? And now my question will be, would you say fuel subsidy removal is a positive effort on the part of government?
It's not positive. It can never be positive. Of course,
because that was the efforts that actually
led to
birthed all this.
The government effort, the effort or the idea of subsidy removal wasn't a bad idea, but the approach to which the idea was implemented is what exacerbated the whole matter, and the whole positive intention, which probably would have been or would be in the next future, have now been rolled out. We all know how Nigerians, the government of Nigeria was also suffering economically because of the debt that they were paying in terms of subsidy for fuel to be affordable. And we also know in the case of that subsidy, a lot of politicians, a lot of Nigerians were, eating from the nation's treasury in the name of fuel subsidy. So if the subsidy was to be removed in order for Nigerians to be able to manufacture or to refine fuel within themselves, in order for our refineries to be built so that we can refine our fuel, it was a positive thought. But the idea of announcing the removal without putting measures to be able to control the economic hardship that will come, that is what is leading us to the reality that we are facing today. So the government effort of removing fuel was not bad, but the approach to the subsidy removal is bad, and that is why we are finding ourselves here.
So you're saying the inability of government to revamp our refineries over the years is due to the fact that the government has been paying subsidy?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. People were feeding on the government.
Okay, now with the glaring situation that we have now, Nigerians are beginning to think and feel that could it be that the only thing they enjoy was even the subsidy?
Nigerians were enjoying the subsidy as a stomach infrastructure.
No, stomach infrastructure. If you're talking about a situation where, because people argue that all countries, government in all countries subsidize, and where these are countries where institution works, their system work, everything work, yet there is subsidy for food, subsidy for drugs, subsidy for everything. Then we are talking about Nigeria that is still a developing country. And that's a country whereby the majority of the population live below poverty line. And boom, subsidy is removed. Now the person who, like you rightly said the other time, that was paying 200 naira from point A to point B now pays minimum 500 naira. So, to whose advantage is this?
I know every effort of the government is for the citizen. If it is positive, the citizens are going to enjoy. If it is negative, the citizens are bearing the brunt, and that's what happened to them. Like I'm saying, the removal of subsidy was intended to bring an internal development where fuel will be available and will be affordable. But
fuel was available all this while.
But it was not. We had issues where scarcity of fuel was up and down sometimes. If supposing that the approach of removal of fuel was
even now we still have scarcity.
We still have scarcity because the approach to the removal is wrong, and what the government was supposed to do.
Now let's talk about the approach. How would you have advised that this removal of subsidy be approached?
The removal of subsidy will have been announced after we have at least 2 to 3 refineries working. At least. If the difference between 180 or 195 to 200 we're buying fuel was just a matter of adding 15 naira to it because subsidy that have been removed, fuel is now 350. And you now see that we have created a refinery that can employ millions of Nigerians. You see that people will have job. So it's not about only buying the fuel, there will be food. And now if part of the money that was used for fuel subsidy is used to create other industries and factories where Nigerians can have job too to work, apart from the refineries, there will also be job creation and employment. If part of the money that was used for fuel subsidy is used for infrastructural development,
which is not
road, like
because
road,
what
that's what I'm
we see.
saying. So the intention wasn't bad, but the approach was bad because the government intended to reserve the money that was used as subsidy for our internal development, but that money is not being reserved. So over the almost a year now, the subsidy have been removed, and we cannot see tangible thing that Nigeria have been able to say this is what we have done with the money that the government was spending for the importation of fuel. So that's where we are having issue. Supposing that our refineries are working and the money that is added for citizens to buy fuel is being converted to internal development and creation of other factories and job opportunities, Nigeria wouldn't complain. But in a situation where the hardship is still there, and then labor are crying for is it minimum wage? Minimum wage, I'm not
minimum wage, yes.
Private workers are still paid the same salary they were paying, and
even
government workers are still earning the same.
Because there are states that are still dragging that they cannot pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage that was implemented. Yes, that was approved by the former administration. That's the former President Muhammadu Buhari. There are still state governors that are dragging that they cannot pay that amount of money, while there are governors who are already paying. Now Labour is talking about the upward review of this minimum wage. In fact, the last time Labour mentioned it, Labour was targeting ₦1 million.
Yes. So like what before I land, so the situation that we are facing is the government playing politics against leadership. They are playing politics against leadership because if government are playing politics against, they are supposed to lead.
Governors.
The government generally
playing leadership, playing politics
against leadership.
Okay,
they are supposed.
Can you elaborate?
Okay, now we play politics. We play politics to get leadership position. Okay. And when we get leadership position, we take the role of leaders. We lead, but we are saying we are still politicking. For example, the removal of the subsidy wasn't bad because it was a way to make sure we have the reserve of a revenue that was spent outside to bring fuel to be able to work on our refinery so that they will be working. And we now also the government listed the advantage of our refineries running, but those refineries are not running. So you now see that there is a political interplay in it, because supposing that the subsidy is being removed and all the benefit that the Nigerians were to get from subsidy removal, if we are getting it, nobody will complain. If you are earning 500,000 against 150,000, you can buy the fuel for 700 naira without arguing, because you know that when the fuel subsidy was ongoing, you were earning 150. Now they are removed subsidy. There is an elevation in the standard of living. So now you can be able to afford current cost of living. But today we are facing a cost of living against the standard of living of Nigerians, which is unbalanced, and it's making it look as if government are politicking instead of leading the people.
How will this affect family values?
It actually affected a whole lot of family values because, number one, there are some of exigencies that you cannot do without in a family. For example, if you are a parent, your kids must eat on a daily basis. If you are, it will be a time that they will also have their clothing. It will be a time that they will have to pay their school fees. Those are exigencies that you cannot escape. But at the moment, there are some families that they could no longer afford to feed 3 times in a day. I stand to be corrected, but this is the reality.
Inability to feed 3 times in a day did not even start from subsidy removal. It's been there for some years that some families are struggling,
but then
from hand to mouth.
They are feeding from hand to mouth.
Yeah, it's now worse.
They are the level of feeding that people feel it was for the poor. Even when we're talking about, because in a society there are classes of people that all of them can never be equal.
Exactly.
So there are people that were looking for the kind of food they wanted to eat, not as if they cannot see anything. But the reality of it is that there is no choice, and people are just looking for what to use.
Whatever you see, you eat.
Yes. So, and people are struggling to even see whatever now. Twice or thrice a day is very bad. So the family values have been drastically affected due to the current hardship that is ongoing.
And for a country that prides itself that prides itself as a giant of Africa, and also a country that upholds culture and tradition, do you see this situation actually being responsible, or let's just say increasing the level of moral decadence in the country?
The cultural values are not the dominant factor of what we are going through.
No, because this is a country that prides itself. Because when there's hardship, there's bound to be people who do things they are not supposed to do.
In terms of decadence in the society, it's as a result of people trying to meet up, or people trying to compare themselves with each other, or to be able to fit with the trend. So it has nothing to do with the hardship.
Are you saying? Well, I'll hold your thoughts there. We are taking another commercial break, and when we return, Godwin Peter is still here.